2 years removed from beating the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl for the second time, Tom Coughlin, Eli Manning, and the New York Giants went just 7-9. Victor Cruz and Hakeem Nicks both took steps back when they should have been maturing into the prime of their careers. So the offensive side of the ball for the New York Giants really needed an injection of life. So, with the 12th overall pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the New York Giants selected a junior wide receiver out of LSU, Odell Beckham Jr. Now, a decade later, things look much more bleak. The Giants are locked into an expensive Daniel Jones contract after going 6-11 in 2023, and now Brian Daboll's really already on the hot seat after just 2 seasons. Without a chance to draft a quarterback in the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft, New York went with the next best thing, drafting wide receiver Malik Nabers out of LSU with the 6th overall pick. OBJ captivated the Big Apple, but could Nabers be even better? Let's find out. Beckham isn't known for being a burner, but at the 2014 NFL Combine, he did run a 4.43 40-yard dash, and in his final year at LSU in 2013, he averaged 19.5 yards per reception and racked up 1,152 receiving yards. The Giants' newest rookie receiver didn't run at the Combine, but ran an unofficial 4.35 40 at his pro day. That may not sound much better than Beckham's 4.43, and it really isn't, but the way Nabers can use his speed, change directions without decelerating, and reach top speed in the blink of an eye is special. In college and the NFL, Beckham was much more than just a field stretcher. Running most of his routes as a true outside X wide receiver, Beckham hauled in 70.5% of his targets as a rookie in New York with an average of 12.3 yards downfield. That season, 20% of his targets from Eli Manning came over 20 yards downfield, and he caught 10 of them for 366 yards and 3 touchdowns. He immediately became Eli's primary target and primary deep threat, but his ability to take the top off the defense simply doesn't compare to Malik Nabers. Nabers is a Tyreek Hill-esque deep threat, one of the few prospects who has ever been deserving of that comparison. This isn't a John Ross situation where a guy is setting a NFL Combine record and it doesn't translate to the field either. Last season, Nabers led college football in receiving yards, catching 89 passes for 1,568 yards and 14 touchdowns. He averaged 17.6 yards per reception, and his 3.64 yards per route run was second best in the country. Nabers caught 19 of his 29 targets of over 20 yards downfield for 624 yards and 9 touchdowns, producing a staggering 21.52 yards per route run on those plays. Nabers' speed is simply undeniable, and it's why some were even ranking him above Marvin Harrison Jr. in the 2024 NFL draft process. So he takes the first category. Now we move on to route running. And there's a common issue for the fastest wide receivers in football. Many of them just can't slow down. John Ross was the fastest wide receiver in NFL history at the NFL Combine until Xavier Worthy broke his 40-yard dash record this year. But Ross never panned out in the league because he lacks deceleration, which is how you let the corner fly by you and actually get open to catch the football, unless you're consistently beating him down the sideline with true speed, and Ross wasn't able to do that. Nabers might, but he's also an elite decelerator. Nabers has an incredible knack for maintaining his speed through his breaks and can also throttle down with the best receivers in football. That's why against zone coverage in 2023, Nabers led the country with 4.42 yards per route run and averaged 20.2 yards per reception, despite an average depth of target of 11.2. He was incredibly efficient against zone because he just has a knack for sitting down in the soft spot. And that's a skill that it takes a lot of the league's best receivers and especially best deep threats a long time to develop. But Nabers has already perfected it. And once he makes a catch between defenders, that speed isn't gone. He can turn upfield much quicker than the defenders can close on him and eat up the extra yardage that they're affording to him. Obviously, Nabers' speed allows him to dominate against man-to-man coverage. One of LSU's most devastating plays was a slot fade in one-on-one coverage. 53.6% of his snaps came out of the slot, and on the 70 targets he received on those plays, he caught 51 for 991 yards and 12 of his 14 touchdowns. You can see against Mississippi State in these clips here, just dominating corners because he has so much space to work with, and his speed is devastating. He averaged 19.7 yards per reception, the 7th best in the country, and second best of any player with at least 50 catches from the slot. It's not just deep shots, though, where Nabers' speed really shows up. If you take a look at certain plays against man-to-man, like one of the clips we have coming up here, he can win on a slant quickly and create enough separation to convert on a money down. Not every receiver can translate their quickness into speed and have the awareness of where the first down marker is. Nabers is excellent at doing that, and it makes him such a unique weapon. Nabers' versatility will make it tough for Beckham to beat him in the route running department, even though Beckham came into the NFL really refined. Earlier, I pointed out the differences between Nabers and Beckham's production at LSU, but it's worth adding some context to that. The SEC was very different back in 2013. First, Beckham was catching passes from Zach Mettenberger, not Heisman Trophy winning Jaden Daniels, and he was in a run-first offense that also featured NFL wide receiver Jarvis Landry. Sure, Nabers had Brian Thomas Jr. to share targets with, but there were more than enough throws to go around in that offense. And just look at the difference of physicality of SEC football back then. There was no PI called on this play. Beckham was facing primarily press man-to-man corners who got away with a lot, and he was still able to win consistently, running most of his routes on the outside and one-on-one, while Nabers had the advantage of the slot and some motion to help him get open. Beckham's release was elite, and he was often able to get position against those physical corners. Coming out, there were questions about whether OBJ would be forced to play primarily in the slot in the NFL because of his quickness and slighter frame, but that didn't happen. He dominated as an outside receiver because of the quickness and his route running ability. He's just so agile and clean and smooth in and out of his breaks, and was from day one in the NFL. That's why he was a dominant outside receiver who took just 20% of his snaps in the slot. Beckham was a very solid route runner at LSU. Excellent in and out of his breaks, like I just said. He created consistent separation, but Nabers, once again, is on another level. Part of that's due to his speed, but it's also the way he marries it with his knowledge of zone coverage and his ability to decelerate when he needs to. It makes him nearly impossible to cover. OBJ was an elite NFL route runner, but this category has to go to Malik Nabers. Our next category is hands. And when we're talking hands and Odell Beckham Jr., one thing immediately comes to mind. This ridiculous catch against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football that turned him into an NFL superstar. From his tape at LSU, it wasn't a huge surprise when Beckham went on to make ridiculous highlight reel grabs in New York. He was already doing that in Baton Rouge, though back then he mostly used two hands. With Zach Mettenberger at quarterback, OBJ wasn't getting many touch throws over the middle, so it was paramount that he was able to make plays. Then his first year in New York, he only dropped 2 of his 129 targets. Beckham was so dynamic in college that he was returning kicks for the Tigers, and at times he make hands catches on kickoffs and even grabbed one with just one hand. The ease with which he plucked the ball out of the air was staggering on tape, and the strength of his hands to hold on when making plays through contact was a reason that he went in the first round, the top half of the first round of the NFL draft. In the hands department, Malik Nabers is solid, rarely making concentration drops and winning at the catch point against defenders. He dropped just 5 passes in 2023 and never more than 1 in a given game. On contested catch opportunities, Nabers plays pretty well through contact, though he's not asked to do it as often, more often getting catches in open space with an opportunity to run afterwards. Despite so many of his catches setting up the yards for the catch, he's more than capable of making the tough grabs on the sidelines seen here. Nabers has great hands. It's not a concern on his tape unless you're comparing him to Odell Beckham Jr. And then he and most receivers in NFL history are simply going to lose that battle. For Nabers and for OBJ, a lot of the necessary physicality is related to their hands and their ability to make tough catches over the middle of the field. But we're not just going to be grading them on that for our next category, physicality. We'll also focus on a little blocking and tough runs with the ball in their hands. Beckham played in a very physical SEC on a run-first offense at LSU, so his blocking was legitimately important to that team. He came through quite often, even if it was a bit unconventional. It may seem a bit outdated to compare what Nabers will do, but actually many of the NFL's best offenses rely heavily on wide receivers doing their part in the run game. Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan see blocking as an essential part of wide receiver evaluations because they ask their receivers to do it so often. Unsurprisingly, Nabers wasn't required to set the edge for LSU in the run game, but in the NFL, Brian Dable's offense could ask for much more significant blocking from the rookie wide receiver. How he does in that role, that's kind of another question. For now, let's focus on Nabers' ability to get the tough yards with the ball in his hands because there's not a ton of blocking on his tape. For a speedster, he has a rather stout frame and is capable of taking big hits, not just when making catches to fight for extra yards. The toughness will make him even more versatile because New York can feel comfortable handing him the ball on a sweep in short yardage and believe that he can actually convert it into a first down. They can also use him as an alpha wide receiver because he's able to make those catches on the money downs. Despite those positives, there just aren't simply as many of those physical runs or contested catches from Nabers as OBJ showcased back in 2013 in a much more physical SEC. While Beckham's blocking was nothing stellar, just a noticeable effort from the star wide receiver who maybe didn't need to get his nose dirty as often as he did, went a really long way. And there were a lot of noticeable plays that OBJ took a big hit to make. Against Georgia, LSU was in a shootout and desperately needed a conversion. They went right to OBJ, even in triple coverage, and he took a massive hit to convert a long 3rd and 13 in the fourth quarter. That's what you can count on from a wide receiver like that, partially because of his hands, but also because of his physicality and willingness to take a big hit. With the strength and his hands, Beckham was more reliable on those money downs. He's also a better blocker than Malik Nabers, so this category has to go to OBJ. Now to what makes both of these players truly special, their ability to get loose at any moment for a big play. Nabers is a true deep threat, but he doesn't need his quarterback to air it out to make an impact, and neither did OBJ back in the day. As a rookie in the NFL, Beckham ranked 23rd among all wide receivers with at least 50 targets in yards after the catch per reception at 5.3, which equaled his former LSU teammate Jarvis Landry and NFL superstar Julio Jones. Beckham's best yards after the catch season came in 2015, when he averaged 6.2 yards after the catch per reception, but that outlier season, though in the NFL, still falls shy of Nabers' 6.6 yards after the catch per reception in 2023, which came on insane volume. Nabers racked up 589 total yards after the catch, which was number 9 in the country, and only 2 shy of Beckham's best NFL season across a 16-game schedule. In 2015, that was in 2015. Nabers' immediate explosiveness jumps right off the screen. He's a threat to take every pass to the house, and when LSU got him a running start, like on that play you just saw, you can forget about it. Nabers was arguably the best deep threat and yards after the catch receiver in all of college football, and that combination just doesn't exist. A lot of that can be attributed to his pure speed, but Nabers is obviously shifty enough and has great downfield vision to find a seam and exploit it. OBJ probably has an edge in terms of the short area quickness, or at least did when he was coming out in 2013, which is why he was the Tigers' primary punt returner and house 2 in 2012. He also had enough speed to be LSU's primary kick returner, as we saw earlier, and he averaged 26.4 yards per return in 2013. The difference and the reason that this category and ultimately the NFL prospect showdown goes to Malik Nabers is his ridiculous acceleration. Just look at what he's able to do when he gets the ball in space, surrounded by defenders. He can turn upfield and make everyone look like they're moving in slow motion or stuck in quicksand. He can make an 8-yard grab, a 40-yard gain in the blink of an eye. And that's special, special stuff. The New York Giants got a special, special receiver. And it's too bad that they don't have a Hall of Fame 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback to pair him with. OBJ was a transformational player for New York's offense. Nabers can be that too, though he's very similar to a lot of the other receivers in New York. Jalen Hyatt and Darius Slayton are both deep threats. And without much versatility around him, and with a quarterback who struggles to get the ball out quickly for catch and run situations, Nabers could have a very boom or bust rookie season in the league. He's a better prospect by my estimation than OBJ was back in 2013. But that doesn't mean he'll outproduce what Beckham did as a rookie with Eli Manning throwing him passes. The only problem is Brian Dable and the New York Giants desperately need him to.